So I've done well over a dozen videos on phosphines, and we've barely scratched the surface with that. But this video is actually going to be on the olfactory equivalent to the phosphine, your sense of smell, which is the olfaphene. And there's two different kinds of olfaphenes. You have internally generated ones and external olfaphenes. The internal olfaphene occurs when you recall something so vividly that you actually smell a scent associated with that memory. And we're ultimately going to talk about the phosphine equivalent for every sensory organ. Another version of that olfaphene is when you smell something you haven't smelled in a long time, and it puts you into that sort of hallucination or reverie of that past event where you first had that smell. Some smells are either so distinct or you have such a strong emotional or memory connection to it that you do get into like a full hallucination. It's very dreamlike. Your sense of smell is uniquely processed in your brain. Most of all your other sensory information goes to your thalamus, which is your relay center of the brain. For the olfactory sense, it goes straight to the limbic system, where you have your hippocampus and amygdala that handles memory and emotion associations. Scent is not just good for recalling information, you can actually use it to help you memorize new information. And this is how we are going to use the external olfaphene to enhance mental activity. So pick a subject that you want to learn, or maybe a problem you're trying to solve, or even just world building. Any way that you're using your imagination, creativity, or you're trying to learn a new language, or you're studying for a different subject, or you're just trying to commit some new information to memory. But more than that, you want to integrate it into the rest of your thought processing. You want to make it second nature. For example, an engineer doesn't need to actively engage with his engineering knowledge. He sees the engineering in everything around him. At that point, it becomes second nature, becomes part of his subconscious thought processing, his mode of operating. When you're doing a new task or learning new information, your brain expends a lot more energy using that. There's a lot more brain activity involved in that. When it becomes second nature, you actually use far less brain activity. The pathways and the connections are so efficient that it doesn't require any real active engagement. You're able to do other tasks while that's kind of handled in the background or your subconscious. That could take years of studying. It's a huge commitment. But with the olfaphene, we can actually do that in months or even weeks. The first thing you need to do is pick a subject. Maybe you want to learn architecture. We'll just use that as an example. Now pick a distinct scent, and you could use incense, smudge sticks, potpourri, even just the dried leaf or herb. You could use a candle. You could use essential oils. Just put a drop on a test strip or like a piece of paper. You could also use different resins. Really anything that's aromatic that you're able to use in small bits over a long period of time. Whatever you choose, though, you want at least a decent quality of it. There's a lot of artificial chemicals, and you're going to be breathing that in, so it's worth it to have something that doesn't have a lot of artificial chemicals in it. But anyways, so let's say you're learning architecture, and you choose frankincense as the associative olfaphene. So let's say you've done some research into architecture, you've read some chapters in some books about it, you've watched some documentaries maybe. Whatever you've learned or interacted with your chosen subject, you're going to then take your scent and you're going to breathe in that aroma. While that olfaphene is lingering in your mind, you're going to mix the information that you've learned. You're going to recall it, you're going to interact with it. So for example, you take a few deep breaths of your aroma of choice, and then you're just going to engage your mind with the information you've just learned about. You don't necessarily want that aroma the entire time that you're learning this thing. It's only after, when you've taken a minute to pause, that you breathe it in and then spend some time to be mindful of what you were learning and engage with that while you're mixing with the olfaphene. So each session could be just a couple minutes, and you can do that throughout the day, anytime you want to help to reinforce and commit these things, integrate that information that you're learning or working on. But maybe you really want to get into bioarchitecture. So you're going to choose another scent, and you're going to learn nature designs and ecosystems and how like trees grow and how shells grow and all these different organic architectural sort of structures. Maybe you choose cedarwood or jasmine or something like that, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to take a few minutes to integrate that olfaphene with the knowledge that you're just learning about, and you're engaging with that in your mind. You can use as many different distinct scents as many subjects as you want to be working on. You could spend 5 minutes mixing one type of olfaphene with its subject, and then a couple hours later in the day you could mix another scent, another olfaphene with the other subject it's associated with. To make this even more effective, if you add another dimension of brain activity, such as balance and coordination with rhythmic activity, like throwing a ball, bouncing it and catching it, or being in a rocking chair, or pacing back and forth, or even swaying and slowly turning around. Any sort of sinusoidal movement, which is going to help the brain be all in the same wavelength, which is how you're able to integrate things. So it's not just the subject in isolation, but how you can actually get it to be second nature, to integrate it into just your general thought process, to put things into your subconscious. So like I said, whether you're studying for something, or you're just trying to learn a new skill, or research something new, or even if you just want to be in an imaginative space, maybe you're an author and you're trying to world build, you're able to have that sense associated with this imaginative landscape that you're creating and enhance that imaginative process. Eventually, you can get to the point where that connection is so strong that even thinking about that thing will produce the internal olfaphene you've associated with it. As well as you'll always have this pathway to enhancing or to recall things more vividly if you need to with that sense, that olfaphene mixing. Still, this can be taken further. If you have 3 or 4 or more subjects you've been olfaphene mixing, you can finally, when you're ready to integrate all of them, get one scent, spend a couple minutes with it, get the next scent, spend a couple minutes with it with both subjects, and then so on with more and more subjects. And you're going to layer that information. It's going to be almost like a holographic approach to interacting with these different subjects and fully integrating them. So those are some things you can do with the olfaphene. And your olfactory sense is one of your strongest links to memory, and therefore you can use it to memorize, to learn new information. And finally, taking that information, that new subject or skill, and allowing it to integrate or blend with the rest of your mind. Instead of going through normal routes of learning and memorization, it's like we're taking a drill and going directly into this cave of information, to this cave of knowledge, and extracting all the treasure out of it and allowing it to move to the rest of your brain. It's like a precision strike of compartmentalization that you then extract into the rest of your circuitry. The olfaphene allows you to enter into a specific sort of meditative or mindful state or imaginative state that you associate with a subject, and then you're able to explore and memorize and integrate the information from that subject and eventually allow it to integrate to the rest of your body. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching.